We have today Through the Eyes of a Patient, and that patient is this wonderful man, John Sedeka, who is not only a cancer survivor, but he is also a Florida Cancer Specialists Foundation board member with the title of Patient Liaison Board Member. Do I have that correct, John?
That's right. Yeah.
All right. It is a Friday. I have been fighting a sinus infection all week. The coffee has not necessarily been finished or fully kicked in. So anybody that knows me already have given me a lot of grace. So John, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that you can share yours.
Okay. Now we'll see how much technical difficulties I can have. Hopefully not a lot. Let's try that. Can you all see that?
Yay.
All right. All right. Well, I'm very, very honored to be able to speak to you all today. You're a super special group of people, and to be able to give so freely of all your time and your energy. I'm just so grateful for everything that you do. And hopefully, I can give you a little bit of inspiration from my point of view as to why what you do is so impactful for people like me. So I say in the simplest sense, you're providing us with comfort and companionship and a listening ear, the great snacks and blankets that we always need, but in the biggest sense, you're helping us through some of the toughest moments of our lives and of course of our families' lives too, so whether you're helping directly in the clinics and touching the patients that way, or if you're in the office and you're helping process grant applications, you're really making a big impact. So thank you so much for what you do. So a little bit about my story. So who am I? I like to say I'm just a Lithuanian American kid from Chicago, and I had a very, very blessed and wonderful and very normal life. I studied engineering at Illinois Tech in Chicago, and I moved to St. Petersburg, Florida in 1989. So I started out trying to make some friends in St. Petersburg, playing on a little Lithuanian basketball. If you know anything about Lithuanians are good basketball players typically, but a little Lithuanian basketball team, police athletic league kind of a thing. And people told me, they said, if you wanna meet a nice Lithuanian girl, you better go to the Lithuanian folk dancing group instead of the basketball team. So I started up with a Lithuanian folk dancing group and met my wife Ista there. We got married in 1993, and thanks to Florida Cancer Specialists and all of you wonderful people too, we've been together now for 31 years and hope for many more. So our family grew. We added two beautiful daughters. You can see my little one there, Erica, and my older one, Krista. So they're now 21 and 22. So time has passed, but we were just living the dream. And if you turn the clock forward to late 2018, my daughters were in high school. My wife had just returned to work as a middle school teacher. She had stayed home for a number of years to take care of the kids, and we were just rolling along and taking life for granted, and everything was wonderful until I noticed I had a little bit of and not a big sensation, but a little bit of a sensation of an issue in my stomach. And I felt super full after eating even a small meal, and I started getting some pains, and I went to see my doctor, and this is the result. It was stage 4 adenocarcinoma of the stomach that had spread already to liver and lymph. And in my mind, I was like, how is this even possible? I thought I was going to get, some little pill for heartburn or something, and I wind up getting a diagnosis like this. And my prognosis was super grim. That I had less than a year to live, and that definitely changes your plan, and you start thinking about all the things that you dreamed about doing in your life, and all the people you hope to impact and all that, and then you think that you're going to miss it all, and then you try to figure out ways like, how is it possible? Is there some way that I won't miss it? Is there something that I can do? So um, we were determined to be positive and try to take all the steps possible to beat the odds. So I leaned super heavily on my faith. My belief in God is very, very important to me, and it got to be even more important as I went through this journey. And prayer was a huge thing for me. I leaned on my family. I leaned on obviously modern medicine. Thank God for Florida cancer specialists. And my wife created this motto, VBG, we say. It's Viskas bus gerai, and that's Lithuanian for everything will be good. And my company jumped on the bandwagon, and they made this giant poster to display in my team's work area here. And you can see a little mini version of it here behind me on my wall in my office, even to this day. And they also made these little bracelets, these little blue bracelets. I don't know if it shows up on the screen here at all, but they made these things for me, and I had people all over the country. I work for a company that makes sports medicine devices, implants. So there were doctors all over the world that were wearing my little blue bracelets that say Viskas Buzgerai on it. And it's amazing how much encouragement you can get from the power of positive people around you, like you all. So many people were praying for me, and I was praying for a pathway to try to do something. So I wound up trying to do everything that I could. So I dropped alcohol, I dropped sugar, I adopted pretty much a vegan diet, and tried to keep my mind open to what the journey was going to look like ahead. And what I like to say is I was determined to do everything that I could do, and then I was going to ask God to do what I couldn't. So I was very blessed to be referred to Dr. Mark Rubin at your Bonita Springs clinic. And he immediately saw that I wanted to fight to be around for my kids and my wife. And he came right alongside, and it meant so much for me to see his positive energy too, and what he put into my care. He knew my prognosis wasn't great. He was always realistic about it, but he didn't close the door on possibilities, and he said, let's be aggressive and go after it. And from day one, I was real impressed with the staff at FCS. They little things meant a lot to me. Like every time I walked into the clinic, they always greeted me with a smile at the front desk. After a little while, a very short while, they always knew me by name. So every time I walked in, it was always, "Hi, Mr. Sadeka, how are you?" They made the check-in process super smooth. The paperwork was minimized, and so much stuff was taken care of in the background that I didn't worry about that so much. And one of the other things I like to mention even is little things like every time I was leaving after a treatment, they'd always even go to the step of cutting off my little blue bracelet so that I could walk out of the clinic like a normal person instead of walking out for the rest of the day with a reminder of what I'd been through. So little things like that were hugely important to me, and they let me focus on getting better. So this is my friend Danielle. She was my original nurse in Bonita Springs, and she's the one who had the unenviable task of telling me what the chemo was going to be like, and all the things that I was supposed to expect. She took me through the patient education, did a beautiful job of it. She's now the charge nurse in Bonita. And this picture is of her from last Tuesday when I was in for some follow-up blood work. So I think it's super nice to have that kind of continuity that at FCS we don't see tremendous amounts of change. And it's been basically the same volunteer that I've seen there, and I'll talk about her in a little bit, for all these years as well. So the continuity of all of you makes it feel like a more of a family oriented experience. So I started my treatments. It was heavy duty chemo. I kept it up for a year. I had 26 treatments, wound up with all kinds of neuropathies. To this day, I still don't have a lot of feeling in my fingers or my feet from the chemos, but it sure beat the alternative. I always used to joke that I'd rather have numb feet than cold feet, you know. Bad joke, but uh, but it was like funny to the nurses at the time when I would say it. But the nursing staff was always great, and the clinic, I would say, was always clean. It was always even I'd call it inviting, and you know, the pharmacy staff was always good. I always had huge trust that I was in the best place for my care, and wherever the clinic staff left off, that's where all the volunteers, you know, would pick up so beautifully, you know. And this is my most memorable volunteer, Leora, from the Bonita office, and she was so kind to me and to my wife. She always smiled. She always brought me my peanut butter crackers. She brought me blankets because you guys keep it so darn cold in those clinics. And I always saw her doing little things to help the staff too, you know, just in organizing stuff in the room and keeping things neat and orderly. And she was always known for decorating the treatment room. So she's very crafty. So she always had decorations for Halloween and Christmas, and everything she did was always handmade, you know. And you could see that that always lifted the mood of the patients for one thing, and our families, but definitely the staff too. They were working in a much happier environment because of the effort that she put in, and it was such a big impact that only a volunteer could bring. So I was trying to find a little quote that I thought kind of summed up how I feel about Leora. And this one came from Leo Buscaglia. It said, too often we underestimate the power of a touch, a smile, a kind word, a listening ear, an honest compliment, or the smallest act of caring, all of which have the potential to turn a life around. So she's somebody that I'll always remember and always be grateful for. And my wife struck up a really nice friendship with Leora. And Ista would come with me to the treatments until COVID forced her to stop. And she's a major crochet person. And she said she was going to start working on a blanket for me for when I'm healed that I'd be able to have at home. And she wasn't going to stop working on this blanket until my treatment was over. And as you can see, the blanket's pretty big. So she worked on it for a long time. It was quite the journey. But Leora and Ista talked about the crafty stuff a lot. And I thought that that was really important, that while the staff was really focused on me as the patient, the volunteers, you know, like Leora was able to also focus in on the family. And I think that's probably like one of my biggest lessons from going through this whole process is people are always focused on how is the patient doing? How, you know, are they sick today? Are they okay today or whatever? But people rarely ask about the family. And so I always try, anytime I hear about anybody going through anything, I always ask about the family, or I check in on the family, or and try to make them feel like they're a big part of the process too, because they're suffering as much or more. You know, so Ista also made a comment about the volunteers that I thought was good, and I wanted to share with you that, you know, she didn't really know exactly why all the volunteers were there, but she always assumed that it was because they had a loved one who had gone through the process, or maybe they had even gone through the process themselves. And she thought that they were kind of a window to what life after cancer was going to look like, you know, whether it was going to be, you know, with me or without me. She could see that people were still being positive and giving back and having impact, and life goes on, you know. So she looked at you guys as a glimpse of the future, no matter how it would end for me. So you really do have a bigger impact than you ever could imagine. So since my cancer was terminal, I also used MD Anderson in Houston as a second partner because I wanted to be lined up with a big academic institution, that when my chemo failed, that maybe I would have an opportunity to jump on some kind of a clinical trial. And I was really encouraged that Dr. Rubin and Florida Cancer Specialists supported that approach. It was seamless for me. I would have my treatment in Bonita, and I'd go to Houston at MD Anderson every 8 weeks for my CT scan. So I would have two medical teams kind of watching me. And when my chemo finally did fail after a year, MD Anderson had nothing to offer me, no trials at that time, because you really have to be lucky at that point in the calendar that there is a trial that's available, it hasn't been closed, that you have the perfect genetic makeup for it or whatever. And MD Anderson, as big as it is, didn't have anything to offer me other than different, stronger chemo. So thank God that I was still in Houston And Dr. Rubin connected me with Dr. Judy Wang in Sarasota. She's at the drug development unit at the Cattleman office. And she did have a phase 1 immunotherapy trial for me. And her staff was awesome. And they were super aggressive and getting me set up and getting me enrolled in the trial and then supporting me. So I stopped going to Houston at that point, and my treatment stopped from the Bonita office, and I started going up to Sarasota once a month for catch up with Dr. Wang on the trial, and then to get my immunotherapy infusions. And I thought it was really awesome that Florida cancer specialists could provide trials that even the biggest academic centers couldn't. And the Sarasota staff was just as great as Bonita. The drug development unit was on the first floor, treatment room was upstairs. There were separate offices, but it felt like it was all the same family, the same place, you know. And most of this treatment happened during COVID, you know, and that was sad for me because my family wasn't allowed in, and neither were you. So I didn't really get to meet any volunteers significantly in the Cattleman office, and that definitely made things harder, you know. So I was sad for a lot of the patients that were in the middle of the daily or weekly treatments. You know, they lost the companionship of their families. They lost the companionship of the volunteers. I understand that you weren't even allowed back for like 16 months.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but thank God that's all over with and that you're all back. Although I do understand that about 50% of the volunteers didn't wind up coming back after COVID, you know, so it's been a challenge for you to be able to build back full staff and be back at full strength, you know. So, but the immunotherapy combined with lots of prayers led me to remission in 2020. And I'm now 4 years out since getting my last dose of immunotherapy, and I feel like it's definitely a miracle that you all helped bring about. I'm very, very, very blessed. We have this little chalkboard in our kitchen, you know, that we try to write down something that we're thankful for every day. And for a long time, my wife had this up there. It says, "I'm thankful for miracles," you know, and since my treatment was non-traditional, you know, I didn't, like a lot of people, they say, okay, well, you're going to have 6 months of chemo. And at the end of the 6 months, if everything looks good, you're done, you're clear, you go home, you ring the bell at the clinic and off you go. Since my treatment was non-traditional, there was no end date. I never got to ring a bell. So on July 23rd of 2020, when I had my clean PET scan results, my wife bought me a bell. So we have my own bell now at home, and at the 23rd of every month, we take a pause and we ring that bell just to remember and be grateful, you know. So she also added a second, more permanent bracelet for me, you know. So the first one is the blue one that says "Viskas bus gerai," everything will be good, and she replaced it with a leather one, a little more permanent, that says "Viskas ida gerai," which means everything is good. And I still wear those every day as a reminder. So I continued all my CT follow-ups at the Naples Goodlet office, yet another wonderful FCS facility. And I was there just last week, and I ran into my friend Linda there, who used to run the front office in Bonita, and she had since moved down to the Goodlet office. And I was actually in the radiology wing, which is separate from her office. But when I heard she was there, I wanted to just pop in and say hello. And she immediately remembered me and said, "Hi, Mr. Sadeka," gave me a big hug. And I asked her if I could take this picture, you know, with her to share with you guys. I had also given a presentation like this a week ago or so for the FCS operations staff that was all together in Clearwater for a conference, and I wanted to be able to share all these different clinic locations and all these special people that had touched me throughout the process. So I shared this picture with that group up there too. So again, that personal touch, you can't imagine how important it is when somebody knows your name and recognizes you, remembers something about your story. So you all definitely helped me get my life back, and I just wanted to share a little bit about what that life has looked like, all the stuff that I've been able to do because of you, you know. So instead of missing 2 high school graduations, I got to celebrate them, you know. So this is my daughter Krista when she graduated from high school, went off to UF, And then this is my daughter Erica, who graduated a year later and also followed and went to UF. And then this year, Krista actually graduated from UF. And never thought I'd see the high school graduation. Now I'm seeing college graduations. So she actually has moved back home. She's a second grade teacher here down in Collier County, and she's just wonderful. And my second, Erica, she'll be graduating this year, and we'll be going back up to Gainesville in May, I should say next year in 2025, to celebrate her graduation as well. I got to put on a huge 50th birthday party for my wife, and you know, by all rights, she should have been celebrating this as a widow. So because of my miraculous treatment and all the support that I've received, you know, we were able to have 75 people in our house and celebrate her turning 50. And this was me right after diagnosis, which was like right after Christmas in 2019, and I was getting ready to take that Christmas tree down, and Christmas is a big deal for us. And as I took that Christmas tree down, I wasn't sure I was ever going to be able to put that Christmas tree back. And now, of course, we've done it numerous times, and as soon as we're past Thanksgiving, it'll be going back up again for this year, you know. And from a work perspective, I work for a company called Arthrex, and we make sports medicine implants. So we're in the medical business as well. And I have the privilege of being the senior director of the upper extremity team. And a little quirk, also a little funny part of my story, I guess, is I was promoted into this role the same week I was diagnosed. So it's almost like a cruel twist, you know, that I was hitting the job that I had always dreamed about, and at the same time I was told, yeah, you're going to have it for about 6 or 8 months, and that's probably going to be about it. But my company is privately held, and it's super supportive. And this is a picture of the owner of the company. His name is Reinhold Schmieding, and he's amazing, and he supported me, and my team supported me throughout the whole process. I actually got named as the manager of the year for Arthrex in 2022, and this was him handing me that little trophy, which I treasure. So, of course, we've taken tons of trips. You know, the whitewater rafting, Chicago. I got a chance to go for a run around the Opera House in Sydney, and we've been to Maine, and this is Lake Louise up in Calgary and Banff area in Canada. We've been to Lithuania and London and Paris and Munich and Mount Rainier, you know. So we're really taking advantage of every day and looking at every day as a gift. And one of the things I'll kind of close with here is I was always blessed that I never had any financial issues during my treatment, you know, but obviously so many people do. And how awesome is it that FCS supports the foundation to help needy patients, you know, with the costs of daily living. And so I was really happy to say yes when Lynn Racis, the executive director, asked me to join as a new role as a patient liaison board member. And it's been super rewarding for me, and I hope I get to do it for a long time. And I never really made the connection that the volunteers in the clinics were actually tied to the foundation as well, you know. So that's really cool. So we've got volunteers that help in the clinics, and we got volunteers that help with the grants. So answering those phones and helping patients with the grant application process, reviewing those applications, you know, helping with the fundraising events, you know, that stuff is so huge. And, you know, we're so lucky to have all of you. And the last thing I'll say is, you know, I found it really impactful that a patient like me could hear that the doctors were actually funding the operations of the foundation. You know, they were out of their own pockets. They were covering administrative costs, you know, for finances, accounting, IT facilities, all those different kind of things. And I think that it's a wonderful story that if you all have an opportunity to ever share that with patients, it's hugely impactful. It made me feel even better about my doctors and about FCS. And it would make it clearer to me, you know, and maybe inspire people like me to get more involved in the foundation and maybe donate if we knew more about it. So I'd encourage you to talk about the foundation with people like me at every chance that you get. So this is a recent picture, and these are I hesitate to call them significant others, but I guess I have to, I'm not sure I'm quite ready for that, but these are the boyfriends, and how blessed am I to be able to look and get a glimpse of what the future might be able to look like with an expanded family as we go off into the future. So again, I'm super grateful for everything that you guys do. You're very, very, very special people, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Barb.
Sure.
What is your actual role in that position? What are your functions, and how might you're such a positive person, how might we tap into that?
Yeah. So with the board, yes. Ultimately, I guess they a lot of times people do things and they start to lose track a little bit about the why, so they wanted to make sure that they were hearing a patient's voice, so if they're making a decision about, something financial or different events or different ways that we could inspire more volunteers or whatever, they wanted to have a patient voice in it, not just doctors or fundraisers or different things like that. So that's been my role. And I've been doing it for about a year and a half, and I think it's been helpful, and I think it helps them be connected to the ultimate goal, which is, trying to take care of patients and their families.
John even went to the extent of going into the online system and filling out a patient grant, financial assistance grant, so that we could see it from somebody's perspective other than our own, as to where it works, where it doesn't work, what are the pitfalls, how do we, my phraseology is, how do we dummy proof it more, et cetera, et cetera. And by going through that process, John, correct me if I'm wrong on the remembrance of this, we made subsequent changes with the application, with the processes and such that have streamlined things for the good, because John was involved and took the time to do all of that for us and give us feedback of, this doesn't work quite right, guys. What about this instead? And so on.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you.
And you guys also have another board member that was added at the same time as I was Lynn Cowdright, from the volunteer perspective. So they added a patient liaison, and at the same time they added a volunteer liaison as well, to make sure that the board gets your voices.
Lynn is a lead volunteer at the Lakewood Ranch Clinic, and I consider her to be a mentor of mine. She was part of the interview process when I was hired on. So somebody you can blame for having put up with me these last 2.5 years, right? For those of you that know and love me, right? You love me. You heard that part, right?
Yeah.
We all love you.
Very
we all love you. We want your energy.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Don't ask their opinion at all, John, please.
They're all
so
smiling.
I want to say thank you again for doing this for us, John. The inspiration, the positivity, the perspective, the look behind the curtain, so to speak, greatly appreciated for you sharing that with us, and just all that you do in terms of being, a member of our board, and what you have helped us with and what you continue to help us with. So thank you.
Yeah, anything I can ever do to help anybody, I'm easily accessible. So
Fantastic.
always feel free to reach out.
We will do that. We will do that.
I hope you all have a
Thank you.
wonderful day and a wonderful weekend.